Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today is not actually a tutorial but more of a video about tips and tricks for working with big peyote tapestries. Now I've been working on a lot of peyote patterns for my shop, and since they've been selling I started getting questions about how do I do this, how do I do that. Now peyote is very basic stage and lots of people know how to do it, but if you have never done a big pattern like this before, you might come across situations where you're like, oh, how should I go about this and that. So this was my first pattern that I've actually started working on, and I faced quite a few things, quite a few issues along the way that I found the solutions for. So I thought I'm going to share them with you. Now this is in no particular order. I'm just going to go along as I feel comfortable. So the first tip is use markers for marking your progress. This was my first pattern I was working on, so I'm going to show you how it went along. Now first page I was working on a different printout, but then I spilled my coffee on it, so I had to reprint and find where I was working on. And as you can see, first initially I was using a pen, so every time I went and it was taking ages, but that's not the main reason you don't want to use a pen. Here, as you can see, I was already experimenting using a marker and then went back to pen. Now here, that's completely changed my mind. In this row, I made a mistake. So I was using squiggles and then I made a mistake and then I had to go back. But because of the squiggles, it was really hard to see what are the letters here. And then once I found my mistake, to mark my progress, I had to use more squiggles. So I had to like really mark it down. But the problem is, if I were to make a mistake again, I cannot go back and do it again because I can't see what's under there. However, as you can see, I started using marker here, and this is where I am. Yesterday I made a mistake again. I was using a pink marker. I found my mistake and started marking my progress using a different color marker. So I was easily able to mark my progress, but if I were to make a mistake again, I can still see the letters. I could go back again using a different color marker and mark my progress. So stick with markers. Tip number 2, use a stick. Now, I couldn't find anything in this shape in the house, so I went ahead and made it myself. This is A4 paper that I kept on folding until I got this, and then just used a tape to hold it in place. I thought, I could use maybe a chopstick, but it was too thin for my taste, so I ended up just sticking with this. And it's basic, but it works. You don't need anything special, just A4 paper and some markers, and then you'll need 2 pieces of rubber. So what is this for? For example, as you can see, I have quite a big progress going on. This is where I'm beading, right? This is where I got rid of the tail. I would add a new thread and then continue from here. But because I have such a big piece, it's really hard to just, holding it in, constantly bending. It might get dirty, constantly holding, bending. I might break something. So to make it easier, I'm gonna put it down like this. This is the start. That's where I'm gonna put this. And then I'm just gonna keep folding it. And then I'm gonna use the rubber on this side. Then on this side. And then it's very easy. You just hold it in place and keep beading. Finish here, turn it over, keep beading, and that's it. Now, third tip is use a beading tray. Now, I have lots of different trays in my shop. I made them all myself on my 3D printer. I have even bigger than this one if you're using if you're doing a massive pattern and it uses tons of colors. But my favorite one is this one. The slots are fairly small, but they're very close to each other. So when I'm beading, I don't have to move my hand too far. It's like literally very close to each other. And this one is my favorite. And because it's only 15 colors, I try to keep all my patterns 15 colors or less. Tip number 4 is use a peyote starter. If you guys remember, in my previous tutorials, we made these peyote starters, which will help you to start your small peyote projects, and you don't have to worry about wonky first few rows. You always have this to help you start your peyote. Now we're working on a very big project, and if you've never done tapestry, a good starting point might be to make one big peyote starter. Now all my patterns, they're always 140 bead wide, so if you're gonna use a couple of my patterns, I would suggest to have one peyote starter. Just use any random color, and because you don't have to worry about pattern or whatnot, you won't be worried about your beads getting twisted. So all you would have to do is just create a simple peyote length, which is 140 beads wide. Now I'm gonna be lazy because I already have one project which is 140 bead wide, and I'm gonna use this as a peyote starter for my next project. So I'm gonna take this off. Now this is where I'm still continuing this pattern, but this side I can use as a starter for my next project. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this on this end, put the rubber bands on, and I'm gonna use this side to start my next project. And here, what you need to know when you are using a peyote starter. When you start your peyote project, you always pick up first 2 rows, and then from there you add the 3rd and 4th and 5th. When you use a peyote starter, you have to skip first 2 rows, because when you use a peyote starter, you add in between sticky points already, so you can't fit 140 beads. Now in this particular pattern, because my first 2 rows are just one color, I could technically go back and forth, add 2 rows of E and then continue. But in reality, you might have a pattern where first and second row will have multiple bead colors. Then it becomes a bit tricky trying to do that. So for the sake of argument, I'm gonna just go ahead and skip first 2 rows and then start on my 3rd row. And because you are working on a big pattern, skipping first and second row isn't gonna harm your project at all. So get my tray with all my beads ready. I have my stop bead. First, I'm just gonna pick up first bead, which is E. I'm gonna drop it down. And this is where I am, see? I'm gonna go through the first sticky out bead. And then when you are working on the first and second row back, you want to be very careful not to pierce the existing thread which is inside these beads, because once you have enough length going on and you want to split your projects, you might have really hard time taking this thread off this one if it goes through the existing thread here. So when you're working on the first row and then the second row back, be very mindful of where you're putting your needle, because when you're going through the thread, through the bead, and if you are accidentally piercing the thread, you can usually feel it. So try to avoid that. So all I'm doing at the moment is just adding the 3rd row, which is just one color E. Now here I just wanted to show you what you do when you get to the actual rubber band. All you do is just take your needle through and just slide the rubber band below your working point and just continue. And last but not least is to not take off your project from your peyote starter until you have decent length going on. Now I spent 19 hours beading this far. You don't really have to bead this much to be able to remove it from your peyote starter. As long as you have like, an inch going on, you can remove it from a peyote starter, and then you can just create your another tube and add to it. Now, if you notice, my tube is much thicker than before because I've been beading non-stop for quite some time and my hand started getting really sore from holding it. So I realized if I made it thicker, it will be easier to hold on to and my hand stopped being so sore. So I just added like 5-6 more A4s. I just kept wrapping until I felt it was comfortable enough. Now here, if you wanted to remove your project from your peyote starter, all you would have to do is remove the stop bit and just slightly pull it apart, and one by one just remove the thread in between dividing the project. Now I'm not gonna do that because I don't really need to. I'm just gonna keep working on this project. If I get tired of this one, I'm just gonna flip it over and continue working on Graffiti Girl. So I'm just not gonna bother taking them apart, so I don't have to have a second tube. I'm just gonna keep using this one and, you know, put it together like that if I want to work on that, or just put it like that if I want to keep working on this one. So I hope these tips and tricks help you out a bit in your tapestry journey. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. I'll be able to answer as much as I can, but there will be also other people with much more experience than me who might be able to help you out. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.